Hey everyone.
Alright folks, I'll see you in about 20 minutes. Is the audio working here? Okay. Alright, is the audio coming through? Oh boy. Uh-huh. Alright folks, I'll be back. See you soon. All right, folks, I'm gonna go get coffee. I'll see you in a few. Good morning, folks. Let me just get settled in here. Just sending out a tweet. One last invite if folks want to join us. Hope everyone's day is off to a good start. If there's stocks you want to take a look at, see what the chart is saying this morning, just put it in the chat, or you can tweet it at me. Okay. Well, I have GameStop open, as you can see, so we could start with that. So I see it's come down a bit here. It was nearly at 300 at one point. The really good thing here, as I've been saying, is that GameStop for several days now has been holding to this channel that we drew in on the 5-minute chart. I know this gets really messy, but this we started, I guess, so 5 days ago now, not 5 trading days, but on March 5th, it got into this channel and stayed in there the whole day, and then has stayed in there ever since. So that's a good sign, though at the moment it's coming to the bottom of the channel, so we'll want to be cautious to see what happens there. There's always the possibility that something is coming down to fill a gap, and so we may want to sort of watch this zone here as we finish up the pre-market here, and as we get into the trading day, this would be our hey, it's filling the gap zone, which to me is like not a big deal. It's the nice thing about knowing and seeing when something's filling the gap is if you're looking to take a position or looking to average down or something, if it seems to be holding that box and pulling in some price strength with it, then that's actually a really good sign, and it's a good entry point for you. So we see it's kind of falling out of the channel right now, but if it comes to fill this gap and then pops back up and gets back in the channel, then that's okay. Your channels, you basically want to have it catch like 90-95% of the move. Every single bar doesn't have to be inside the channel for the channel to be like legit. So that's where I see GameStop. I'd look for this channel, I'd look for this box to see if it's coming down to fill this gap. It may or may not be, but I wouldn't be super concerned, if it gets into this like 260 level. If it comes down below the 250, then I might sort of give it another look and see what it seems to be doing. But we have a level of support there at this point. The other things that have sort of like developed in the pre-market that makes sense to me that we should be looking for throughout the day are, I'll just draw in some like small, what do I want to draw in? I'll draw in some small, or we'll just put yellow lines here. But I would say like this zone and this zone based on the pre-market. Yeah, this too. All right, these are the next 3 that I'd be looking for today. We'll put these in yellow so that we can preserve the chart. All right, but there's 5 minutes on GameStop, and we have a lot of tickers that we want to look at. So if you're just joining, I had mentioned, feel free to tweet me or to put in the chat if there's a ticker that you want to look at. But I'm going to look at the ones that I'm in first. So let's take a look at AMC. Okay. I haven't really looked at these very much yet this morning. So, one thing that I would sort of pay attention to is that there was this double top here essentially twice. So as it gets into this zone, you know, I would look for it to move past that, and if it can move past that, then again, green means money, so we could be in the money if we can get past that, but it's going to have to establish over these where it's topped out here, which is basically in line with the topping out here. Otherwise, you know, this yellow line here, 1103, that we had charted yesterday or last night, held up really well in the pre-market. So I look for that to hold our support. If not, that 1079 should be good. The nice thing about AMC, as it's developed since yesterday, is it started to have this sort of like cushion of support that we've been talking about with GameStop, where there's now becoming so many levels below it that are support zones, and now it has all of this strong support in the 9s. I mean, hopefully that doesn't like play out that way for anyone who's long, but you know, we had been saying that once it gets over these 9s, there's a lot of run room into the 10s, and that's exactly what we saw yesterday. The thing to keep in mind there is that that's also going to mean that there's not a ton of support if it breaks below that 1029 and doesn't sort of like immediately reestablish it as support. It'll probably have a little bit of a support level like here at this 1009, but there's a big, you know, space to drop there if it wants to drop. So that's what I'll be looking for from AMC as we get into the day. You know, retake this 1103 as support and then push into the mid 11s, and then it's really going to need to show that it can get over this green box in order to not top out once again, because as we see, every time it tops out there, it gets pushed down pretty aggressively. So if it does that again, you know, I would really keep an eye on it. All right. You can look at SOS, someone is asking about. All right. So let's see, what's this guy been doing? Okay. Okay, good pump in the pre-market. You know, there's definitely an important zone here that I'd pay attention to. I'll zoom back in after I take a look at this. I just need to account for like more recent price activity here. Wow, this is like the boring, silent charting moments. I don't know if you can hear the birds chirping in the background, but it's pretty on my end. These are the catch zones that I'd be looking for. And then on the top side, yeah, so I'd be looking for this, for it to break the upper limit here. Okay, there's a ton of zones here. Like I said, I haven't looked at this before. So give me a zone like here. Alright, so you got a bunch above and below, which is good. Some info to go off of, sort of pay attention to as the trading day starts and see what happens when it hits these zones. This will be quite a pump if it gets into the mid-8s, so let's just leave it there and see where you're looking. So this is what I'd be looking for as the market opens. You know, it should, I'd look for it to hold this 682, 665 levels, and then sort of hit some resistance at 730, turn that into support, and you could be good to go. And then, you know, on the upper side, after you can get past 730, I would be looking for that 771 zone, and then 804, 852. Tesla, I had charted because I had done a video on it a couple of days ago, I think we did on the daily chart, but let's just look at the hourly at the moment. So it fell below our red zone here. As you see, it sort of like got caught up in it there, and then it pushed yesterday through it and then established it as support, so that's a good sign. But I would say that this chart is still intact because it's still hitting levels that we had charted previously. And now that it's back above our lowest price target, I would be looking for that 720 area as a resistance point to begin with. Since it bounced off of it as resistance here, I would be looking quite strongly for it to get through there, because if it bounces off of it again, you might come down and fall through this 655 again. So I would just be cautious with that. All right, so there's SOS and Tesla. Hopefully that's helpful. You can see on my channel, there's the Tesla video from just the last couple of days, maybe Monday or something like that. All right, so let's look at, actually had seen Ideanomics this morning. So I had put out a video on this about a week or more ago, and it looks to me like it's coming to like be back in play. I'm looking for this to be going more toward the $5 mark in the next few months, so that would be a good percentage increase. But I would say that this chart is still what I'd be working off of. This zone, as we had said before, is quite a tricky one for IDEX. And this was from back on February 26th. I think that's still the case because we see it here as resistance, developed support, and gave it room to shoot up, but then it got drawn back down, tried to develop support again, couldn't, and then it really got the beat down. So now that it's coming back to that zone, it has good run room to the high threes if it can get that 335 support to be like really stable, and then we can get into the fours. So I might be looking at taking a position in IDEX today, actually, because that's looking pretty solid to me. Let's see what else I got that I'm interested in. Eyes. Eyes is getting the beat down in the pre-market. So what I had sent out this morning on my Twitter was basically that, we want Eyes to not get stuck below this yellow box, because if it can get through the yellow and then into the green, I would start to feel pretty solid about its prospects for price strength going into the market open. And then I think we could work ourselves back toward 20, even, potentially over the course of just today. But it's got to turn this around, obviously. This 1523 area is proving to be kind of a tough zone for it, so it's got to do some work if it gets there again. But you see all of the topping out here, and then it has interaction with that zone here, and then it was a consolidation point here. So what we've seen is previous consolidation point that was support that allowed for this big move up has now become a strong resistance point. Strong zones remain strong zones, whether they are support or resistance. So just keep that in mind. But first things first, we got to make sure that if we get down to that 1293 level that we bounce off of it. Because I don't think that I even charted beneath that. No, I just charted down to that level and thought we'd be pretty safe with that. But, it's a volatile stock at the moment, so you never know. All right, for the new folks that have popped in, if you want to review any particular tickers, just throw it in the chat. You can also tweet it at me. I can take a look at my Twitter really quick, see if anyone has sent anything that they want. Nope. So, what else did I say we would take a look at? So we have iPof and iPod. Okay, these are coming alive a little bit, so that's good. The thing with iPof and iPod, these are SPACs, and I had put out a video on this a few days ago. If you look for it, on my channel. It's something like market opportunities during the crash or something like that. And what I talk about there is basically that iPod and iPof are SPACs. And I mention a little bit about what a SPAC is there. But the interesting with these is that they have this like price floor of $10 in specifically for iPof and iPod. And so if the price goes below $10, you know, you can essentially redeem, is my understanding. And so it's not like you're risking going to zero. If the deal falls through, or if they can't merge with a company, you know, the funds are held in a trust that people are investing, and that money is paid out at the floor price. So I've felt good since the beatdown buying into iPof and iPod, because at some point they were in the tens, as you see. So to me, I was looking at this and saying, okay, if I buy 100 shares of this, I'm essentially risking $81, because I can always redeem it for $1,000 if I need, and I'm going to buy in at 1081 or 1081. I mean, for 100 shares. So iPof and iPod I would still look at because they are very, very close to their floor. And let's get to. I haven't played Space in a long time, but this has been nice. I don't think this is definitely not from any charting that I've done recently. That must have been a very, very old thing. But let's look. Okay. All right. Let me just do a little bit of drawing in here. I think this is an interesting one because the top's over here and then the bottoming out here. This has been a really healthy run up, actually. I mean, these are like big percentage changes, but this is good, healthy running up, because it sort of like continues to push back as it comes up. You know, it's very much this sort of movement. So I would look for this one to be strong. Like, look at all that bottoming out there. Should hold as strong support. If it doesn't, you might have quite a bit of room to fall down to here. But that's what I look for to keep me under the 30s. There's going to be a lot of friction there. All right, so that's where I look in the immediate, like as the market opens. This is what I look for my support areas. I would obviously, if I was in this, really want to hold that 30.75, but I would expect it to hold that 31.34, even if things get a little bit wild at market open, as we know tends to happen, and there's like big pushes down. And you all probably know this, but often there's this sort of like recoiling effect, where if there's this big sell-off in the first hour of the open, it often tends to like hit one of our zones and then jump off of it for the remainder of the day. So often the first price movement that you see within the first 30 to 60 minutes of the stock, especially these volatile stocks, it's often going in the opposite direction that it's going to for the rest of the day. But that's where you just want to be paying attention to these price targets that we identify and say what's happening when it hits that. Because obviously if it gets stuck under any of these and it develops it as resistance, then it may not be reversing course, you know, just based on what happened at market open. So that's what I would look for there. I would say, you know, there's, let me see if we zoom out a little bit here. Okay. Yes, I mean the zone that it's sitting right now like aligns really well with these previous tops, as you see, top, and then it was previous support here. So previous support turned to resistance. Those are really important zones to pay attention to. So I look at that, and then, you know, if I was in a hopeful mood for the coming days, I'd be looking for the price to move itself into this box. yeah, this would be like my hopeful zone, essentially. Well, we can leave it blue, which is going to be 34.5, 33. So getting into that box would be a really good sign and gives you several more jumping off points for space. Hopefully that's helpful. Let's jump to CCIV. I do still have a position in CCIV, and so this chart's been intact for quite a while. I've had a ton of videos on CCIV. I had an initial video where we drew in all these price zones, and then I've had several recap, like update videos. So, okay, so it's still playing with this, yellow 25-23 that we've had drawn in for quite a while. The fall zone here. Okay, so yeah, basically what we had said was this 22.96 we'd expect to be strong support, and that if it develops support there, that it had a lot of run room to 24.80, like not a bunch of friction in between. We basically saw that play out yesterday, but now what it needs to do is develop like consistent strong support at 24.80, and then it gives it some run room through 25 into the high 26s, which would be really good. But what it hasn't been able to do since it flew through this zone is it hasn't been able to establish strong support at 24.80. That's what it needs at the moment. That's what it's struggling with. Just know that if it falls below 24.80 and it develops resistance there, it could just as quickly fall back down below 23, back to this 22.96. So just know that speedy up that we saw between those zones could just the same become a speedy down if it gets stuck underneath. On the upside, this is what I'm looking for. There's another huge run area for this. So this kind of sucks. Okay, so if you can develop this 29.62 as support, then we have huge run room. I had initially had into the 40s. There's been some friction that's developed like along this line, like low 30s, but there still is not a ton. I would say maybe up to about 33 and 37 would be ranges that are now friction areas in the 30s, but like not super strong. Like I think there's just a ton of room to run in the 30s to get into the 40s. And this box is here because I've been saying that I think that this is about where the price settles. I think once we make our way back to 44 to 47, that the price is going to bounce around in that zone for quite some time. I think that's about where folks are going to price in the Lucid merger. To get back up there, it might require the actual approaching of the merger date and the hype that will surround CCIV at that point, when the ticker is going to change and all that jazz. But first things first, 24.80, it's got to become real support. It only really had one support candle here, so it's got to hold it, push off of it, get past the yellow, and you can start to feel pretty good. DraftKings have been waiting for it to come down into this green box, but we had put out a video on it the other day and basically said that it's flagging out here, and of course it did. I mean, it doesn't have an option, but it moved up and actually now has developed support on this 6204, which was not what I was looking for, because I would like to take a position in DraftKings, but I'd like to get it at a good price, and so the dip that I was looking for was just below 60. But it may not be coming down there. We'll see what happens. The one thing I did think was interesting yesterday was, even though it sort of landed on our support here, yesterday when a bunch of growth stocks were flying up, double-digit percentages, DraftKings really just kind of struggled through the day yesterday, and I thought, maybe it is going to come back down into the zone, but I haven't. Obviously, we haven't seen that happen yet, but still planning to kind of wait and see if that's the case. Square was one that we said, I think the video I put out something like she's about to blow, and I still think that's the case. So there's a bunch of like friction points here, but I think that it's like a pretty solid elevator up for Square from this point. This is basically what we said that we'd be looking for to get it back into the mid 200s, and then we would go ahead and look and see what's going to happen. My hypothesis on this is basically Square was coming to fill all of these gaps represented by these squares, or these rectangles. Too many square. But that's the idea with Square, and so far I would say that that's playing out. The big telling one, we'll see if it really comes in and fills this gap up to 236. If so, then I'd feel really solid about this one, and then we could chart beyond that like 254 price zone. But to me, that's looking great. Actually, I haven't looked to see what Mara's doing. Okay, Mara's on a heck of a tear the last couple of days. That's great. If you don't know Mara, you could check out the video on my channel that I did. It's actually really interesting. So if like you don't know much about crypto or Bitcoin, but you know that it's like been hyped, but you're not really keen to like buy Bitcoin or buy crypto, Mara as a company actually mines Bitcoin. So as Bitcoin goes up, the value of their stock goes up. So it's this really sort of interesting synthetic way to play the hype around Bitcoin without buying Bitcoin. So I've been in Mara a couple of times now, and Mara has, as Bitcoin does, these really wild swings. So it can be a nice one to sort of see if it has like a wild swing up or a wild swing down. In the past couple of days, you're likely due for a reversal, unless you see something that makes it look like it's just like hit some sort of like critical zone that it's not able to hold and is falling apart. But it's struggling right now with this blue line that we drew in, so I have to see sort of like how it looks there. But I've basically been setting trailing stops on these like big runners. So if you're not familiar with trailing stops, it's really, really beneficial as opposed to just like a stop loss. I could do a video on it in the future if that would be interesting to folks, but this is the 5-minute chart actually, and you saw that like big movement, so like there must be really high volume in Mara right now. It's still up really solid pre-market, even though it's a giant red candle. Palantir, I had said yesterday, was really kind of like a snail. I mean, I know that these are like good percentage gains, 7 and 3, but I'd be looking for a lot more out of it to feel that the run to 30 is coming soon. What I've been saying about Palantir in like all of our recap videos and in my initial video on it was that it's got to hold real support at this yellow line, and then it does have a lot of room to run. If we can get above there, it has pretty solid room to run to 30, though I have been saying that there's this like consolidation box here where I do think it'll bounce a little sideways there, but then I still think that would like signal a strong run up back into the 30s. But kind of waiting to see. I feel like at the time being, when there's a bunch of stocks that are flying, that there's better opportunities out there for the money besides Palantir. So I'm waiting on it for now. Neo has had an awesome run. It was in this box of red despair that I had mentioned several days ago, but it was able to get itself out, which is excellent. And then this support zone, it pretty much blew through and then started bumping against this 41 level. But it did exactly what we thought it would do, in the sense of like it ran completely from 38 to 41 and then started to get stuck. So that's where we are now, and then it's getting stuck at the yellow line that we've drawn in. And for me, for Neo, I don't have a position right now, so I'll probably be looking for a little bit of a pullback before retaking a position. But I think Neo is primed really well to double in the next several months, or at least before the year is through. And so that's what I would be looking for from that. RKT, I'm also like waiting for it to jump up off of this level. It's just gotten stuck here for a very long time after this like deep sell-off that it had. So we'll see if that springboard is coming anytime soon, but if it can get real support here, it should have clean run to 28, and then can get itself back close to 30, but it's got a lot of work to do. not in the strongest position at the moment. So that's all, folks. Good luck today. I'll put out a couple videos throughout the day, I'm sure, or like after close tonight. And if you haven't hit the subscribe button on the channel, I would really appreciate it. And you can of course follow me on Twitter at Dan_Coyle. And that's all for now. Alright folks, have a good one. I'll see you soon.